Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about the two-sample z-test for proportions. This almost brings to the end of the sequence of videos that we've been posting on hypothesis testing. In case you've missed that action, you can definitely catch up through a playlist link that I'm providing you in the description of this video. Whether you are a researcher, a data scientist, or a Six Sigma belt, you need to have this skill set. There are certain core skills in every field which define an expert compared to a person who is a beginner. And trust me, hypothesis testing is one of those skills that you need to have if you're serious about dealing with data. So without any further ado, let's get started with this video. And don't forget to refer to the playlist that I'm posting in the description of this video once again. So when do we perform a two-sample z-test for proportions? A two-sample z-test for proportions is performed when we have to compare two independent samples and we are comparing the proportions. We are not comparing the means here. The data is slightly different. We want to do comparison whether these two proportions are one and the same or they differ. In particular, it could be a greater than, less than, or not equal to kind of a scenario. So what are the assumptions involved here? Pretty much similar to the kind of assumptions you've seen for the one sample proportion test. The sample should have been collected randomly. The observations are supposed to be independent. When I say observations, I'm referring to the rows of the data. Of course, you have the data here provided in two columns, and those columns are also supposed to be independent. And third is that you need to have adequate sample size for both samples. Now, this number might vary from book to book and reference to reference, but they say generally you should have at least 10 observations per sample. This is the assumption that enables us to approximate a binomial distribution. The kind of data that we have here is the binomial data, 0, 1 kind of data, and we want to approximate that to normal distribution. Normal distribution covers the universe. So if you're there, you've landed safe. That's how we see it. Let's dive into a problem to do things in a practical way. And here's the problem statement. We are interested in investigating a relationship between diabetes and coronary heart disease, or CHD. That's how we'll refer to it in short, among a population. The sample includes 200 individuals with 100 individuals in each group. We collected information on the presence or absence of coronary heart disease for each participant. Our goal is to assess whether the proportion of individuals with CHD is significantly higher in the diabetic group compared to the non-diabetic group. Perform this test at 5% level of significance. So now if you see, we've been kind of following a format. We read the problem statement, we look at what all information is provided to us. Of course, we know we have to test this at 5% level of significance or 5% alpha. How do we state the hypotheses? The null hypothesis is that the proportion of coronary heart disease amongst the diabetics is same as the proportion of coronary heart disease amongst non-diabetics. Remember, the null hypothesis will always be checked at equality. If I see it as a complement of the alternate hypothesis, it could have been less than or equal to. But since we always check it at equality, writing it like this is totally fine. What is the alternate hypothesis? As stated in the problem statement, the proportion of coronary heart disease amongst diabetics is greater than proportion of coronary heart disease among non-diabetics. Now we know every test has a test statistic. What is the test statistic in this case? So here is the test statistic. Might look a little complex to begin with, but actually it's very simple. So we have terms like P1 and P2. What is P1? P1 is representing the proportion of successes in sample one. So you have two samples, that's what you're dealing with. Success here is not to be seen as something positive. It's about the detection, right? So we are talking about the people with coronary heart disease. That's not a positive thing to look at, of course, but we are saying that's the event which is captured like this. So the proportion of coronary heart disease cases in sample one. Similarly, P2 is the proportion of coronary heart disease cases in sample two. P0 is a calculation that we do by putting both these samples together. We combine the entire data, and then we look at the total proportion of coronary heart disease cases, adding both these samples. N1 is the sample size of sample 1, and N2 is the sample size of sample 2. Now, notice this is going to give us a Z statistic. Once again, it's relative to the normal distribution. This approximation with which this formula is derived leads us to a problem which can be resolved using the normal distribution table. Let's dive into the data and get started. All right, so here is our data, and the data has two columns, diabetics and non-diabetics. And like I said, the event 1 here represents that the person has a coronary heart disease, and event 0 represents that the person is free from a coronary heart disease. Now we have to calculate P1 and P2, which is the proportion. But in order to get the proportions, we need to count these ones in both the samples. And then we have to divide it by the total number, which is 100. Notice that the formula allows us to have unequal sample sizes as well. But in this case, we just got equal sample sizes, and that's how we are proceeding with it. So P1 would be nothing but the sum of the values in this column. So I only have zeros and ones in this column. So if I add it all, it will give me the total of ones. And we just need to divide it by the total count here, which is nothing but 100. So this is the proportion P1. Likewise, we can just do a sum of column B, which is for non-diabetics, and divide it with 100. This is the proportion in the second sample. Now we can calculate the P0. P0, if you see, is the total of ones in the entire data. So we can select this entire range, which is this entire data. And this will give me the sum of total ones, which is 43. If you see 28 for sample 1 and 15 for sample 2, that becomes 43. And we have to divide it by, not 100 this time, 200, because that's the total number of observations we have. So this is the value of P0. We already know N1 is 100. And so is N2. N2 is also 100. So let me just bring that formula here and do the calculations. Okay, so here is the expression that we needed to do this computation. We have everything that we need in this expression. Let's just put the values here. So let's just do it separately for numerator and denominator. My numerator would be P1 minus P2. So let's just take this value and this value. A lot of times people have this doubt, what if I have done it opposite? For example, I call this as P2 and this is P1 or something like that. Remember, normal distribution is symmetric, so this would not make a difference in your computations, right? Whether you write the first group first or the second group, but that doesn't matter. As long as you are good with the concepts, you'll be able to solve the problem. What is the denominator? The denominator in this case is going to be the square root. So let's just write the formula for square root. And we have to do P0, which is this value, multiplied by 1 minus P0. Once again, this value, and we are multiplying it with what? We are multiplying it by 1 by 100 plus 1 by 100. So that is 2 by 100. 2 by 100, right? And you can close this, and this is 0.058. Now we have to take this ratio, and that's our Z statistic. With practice, you would know that when you're doing a test at a 5% level of significance, and it's a one-tail test, Z critical is 1.645, which means we are already in the rejection region. So if you want to translate this to a p-value, because that's easier for you, then you can use norm S-dist, where you can pass this value and just do the cumulative calculation. This would never be the answer because you're performing a right tail test. So the right answer here would be 1 minus this value. The p-value that you've computed is 0.012, which is, of course, less than 0.05, which is alpha. So when p-value is less than alpha, we reject the null hypothesis. As per the critical value, again, we will just reject the null hypothesis because this is to the right of the critical value. Seeing the same scenario visually, this is what it means. We have a critical value at 1.65. We've just rounded it off. And we have computed the test statistic as 2.237 or something. We've rounded it off to 2.24, and this is where it is. The region to the right of this critical value is the rejection region because we are dealing with one tail, and that too in particular a right tail test, which is a greater than or a larger kind of a hypothesis. When the computed test statistic falls in the rejection region, we reject the null hypothesis, and that's what we're doing here. Let's see how do we solve the same problem in Python. All right, so we are here in Python, and we are calling the usual library pandas to be able to read the data. And in order to perform the proportions test, we'll be needing the statsmodels library. Unlike the usual library, SciPy, which we've been using. Because this test is not so conveniently accessible anywhere else, we're using statsmodels library. Let me just call the libraries here, and then we'll simply read the data using the read Excel method. Data is called CHD, or coronary heart disease. Let me show you the first few records. So you know that the data has a column called diabetics and non-diabetics, and we have these values just the way we saw in Excel. In order to compute the count of diabetics, we're once again going to do the sum of all the diabetics in this column. Because it only has ones and zeros, when I do a sum, I'll get a total of ones. Similarly, for non-diabetics, and in order to count the number of occupied cells in a column, because you could also have missing values at times, you should use the count method. That's the one we're using for the second column as well. So you can imagine when we run this code, all these values would have been stored in these variables called P1, P2, N1, N2, respectively. Now, this proportion z-test is the same class that we used for a single sample. A little bit of modification here would enable us to be able to perform a two-sample test. We have to pass the P1 and P2 values as an array. We can pass them in these square brackets, and similarly, we have to pass N1 and N2. Alternative hypothesis is of what nature? It's a greater or larger type of a hypothesis. So we have written that here, and we are just printing the test statistic and p-value, which is the output that this function generates. See, we got the test statistic as 2.237 and the p-value as 0.0126. Now, these were the exact same values we saw in Excel when we computed everything manually. So this was it. This again leads to the same conclusion that we can reject the null hypothesis in this case. So with 95% confidence in this case, we can state that the proportion of coronary heart disease cases amongst the diabetics is significantly higher compared to the people who are non-diabetics. Hope you had something to learn from this video. Don't forget to subscribe this channel and hit the bell icon to keep receiving the updates. And please share with everybody who might benefit from this. Thank you.